Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Buckle up because we're about to dive into a story that's as outrageous as it is heartbreaking. A tale of tyranny, betrayal, and a flicker of hope in a nation torn apart. Venezuela, once the crown jewel of South America, is now a shadow of its former self. Picture a country where oil flowed like rivers, where vibrant markets buzzed with life, and where dreams of prosperity seemed within reach. That was Venezuela decades ago. But today, it's a different story. A tragedy scripted by a regime that's crushed its own people under the weight of greed and power. Let's set the stage. By July 2024, Venezuela is a nation on its knees. Hyperinflation has turned money into worthless scraps. Imagine paying 1 million bolivars for a loaf of bread, if you can even find one. Hospitals are ghost towns, stripped of medicine and hope. Supermarkets, empty shelves stare back at desperate families. Crime has turned streets into war zones, and the average Venezuelan scrapes by on a salary that wouldn't buy a burger in the States. This isn't a country, it's a crime scene, and the culprit is Nicolas Maduro, a dictator who's taken Hugo Chávez's so-called Bolivarian revolution and driven it straight into the ground. Chávez, Maduro's mentor, swept into power in 1999 with promises of a socialist utopia. He nationalized industries, handed out oil money like candy, and painted himself as a champion of the poor. But the cracks showed early, corruption festered, dissenters vanished, and the economy became a one-trick pony tied to oil prices.
When Chávez died in 2013, Maduro stepped up, lacking his predecessor's charisma, but doubling down on his authoritarian playbook. By 2024, Venezuela isn't just broke, it's broken, a nation where survival is a daily gamble.
Enter the presidential election of July 2024, a moment that could have been a turning point. The Venezuelan people, battered but not beaten, pinned their hopes on Edmundo González, the opposition's candidate. González wasn't a firebrand. He was steady, principled, a beacon of competence in a sea of chaos. The campaign was brutal. Opposition leaders were harassed, voters intimidated, and the regime's propaganda machine worked overtime. Yet, despite the odds, the people showed up, casting ballots with a quiet defiance that spoke volumes. But here's where it gets ugly. The election was a sham, rigged from top to bottom. Ballot boxes were stuffed, voting machines tampered with, and entire precincts mysteriously lost their tallies. Independent analysts, folks with no dog in the fight, crunched the numbers and confirmed what everyone knew. González had won by a landslide, some estimates pegging his lead at nearly 2-1. The evidence was undeniable, laid bare for the world to see. But Maduro? He didn't care about evidence. He declared himself the winner, flashed a smug grin, and dared anyone to challenge him. The fallout was immediate and ferocious. Caracas erupted in protests. Mothers, students, workers, all united in a single cry, "Enough!" They marched, they chanted, they faced down riot police with nothing but courage. Maduro's response was straight out of a dictator's handbook. Tear gas choked the streets, rubber bullets flew, and soon, real bullets followed. Over 20 people were killed in the chaos, hundreds more arrested, their fates unknown. This wasn't governance, it was warfare against a nation's own heartbeat. The world took notice, but not everyone stepped up. Argentina's president Javier Milei didn't mince words, branding Maduro's victory a fraud and refusing to recognize it. The United States echoed that sentiment, tightening sanctions and calling for accountability. But others? They waffled. And that brings us to Brazil, a country that could have been a game changer but chose to play it safe instead. Let's rewind to March 2024, before the election madness. 5 opposition leaders, Magali Maida, Pedro Uruchurtu, Claudia Machero, Humberto Villalobos, and Omar González, knew they were in Maduro's crosshairs. These weren't just activists, they were the backbone of the resistance, key players in Maria Corina Machado's movement to topple the regime. With trumped-up charges of conspiracy hanging over them, they fled to the Argentine ambassador's residence in Caracas, a stately home in the Las Mercedes neighborhood. hoping international law would shield them. Under the Vienna Convention, diplomatic residences are sacred ground, untouchable by local authorities, or so they thought. Fast forward to August 2024. Milei's outspoken criticism of Maduro's election theft pushed the dictator over the edge. In a fit of rage, Maduro expelled Argentina's diplomats, leaving the residents in limbo. Brazil, under President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, stepped in to take custody, promising to protect the property and its inhabitants. It sounded like a noble move, a regional powerhouse stepping up to defend democracy. But as we'll see, Brazil's actions, or lack thereof, tell a very different story. Now, imagine being trapped, not just in a building, but in a living nightmare where every day tests your will to survive. That's what life became for those 5 opposition leaders inside the Argentine ambassador's residence. What started as a sanctuary quickly turned into a slow, deliberate siege, orchestrated by Maduro's regime to break their spirits. This wasn't about justice. It was about punishment, pure and simple. The residence, a gracious home in Caracas's upscale Las Mercedes district, was supposed to be a safe haven. Instead, it became a pressure cooker. Maduro's forces didn't barge in. That would have been too blatant, a diplomatic scandal even he couldn't spin. No, they were smarter, crueler. They cut the power, plunging the house into darkness for days at a time. Imagine no lights, no fans, no way to charge a phone or cook a meal. Then the water stopped. First a trickle, then nothing, leaving the group to ration what little they had. Food deliveries? Blocked at the gate, confiscated by Maduro's goons. What little they managed to stockpile often spoiled without refrigeration. Pedro Uruchurtu, one of the 5, became their voice to the world, taking to X to document the ordeal. On November 24th, 2024, he posted, "The regime's cut our power again. 72 hours and counting. They want to break us, but we're not bending." That's not just a tweet, it's a testament to raw courage. Another post, days later, detailed how a water truck was turned away, leaving them with an empty tank. "We're rationing the last drops," he wrote. This is a violation of every international norm. Outside, the regime's forces circled like sharks, armed guards, drones humming overhead, even snipers positioned in nearby buildings. This wasn't protection, it was psychological warfare, designed to make every moment a reminder of their vulnerability. Inside, the group clung to routine to stay sane. They shared what little food they had, tended a small garden that withered without water, and leaned on each other for strength. But the toll was brutal. No visitors, no contact with family, just the constant hum of surveillance and the fear of what might come next. Magali Meda, a fierce strategist, kept their spirits high, while Omar Gonzalez, a seasoned politician, drew on decades of resilience. Claudia Machero and Humberto Villalobos, both sharp tacticians, helped plan their next moves, even as the walls closed in. Maduro's tactics were a masterclass in cruelty. By denying power, water, and food, he wasn't just targeting 5 people, he was sending a message to every Venezuelan: defy me, and I'll make you suffer. This was a regime that didn't govern, it terrorized. And the world? It watched, debated, but too often stayed silent. Under international law, Maduro's actions were a flagrant violation of the Vienna Convention, which protects diplomatic premises and those within. The residence was supposed to be inviolable, a sanctuary where even a dictator's reach couldn't extend. Yet, Maduro tore that rulebook to shreds, and those 5 Venezuelans paid the price. Their story wasn't just about survival, it was about defiance, a refusal to bow to a tyrant who'd already stolen so much. Now, let's turn to Brazil, because this is where the story takes a turn that's as infuriating as it is revealing. When Brazil took custody of the Argentine ambassador's residence in August 2024, it was a chance to shine, a moment for a regional powerhouse to stand up for justice and democracy. Brazil, under Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, could have been the hero those 5 Venezuelans needed. They could have demanded Maduro restore power, water, and food. They could have rallied Latin America to pressure Venezuela into honoring international law. They could have brokered a safe exit for the asylees, sparing them months of torment. Instead, Brazil fumbled the ball, badly. Lula's government sent diplomats to negotiate safe passage, sure, but when it came to the real fight, calling out Maduro's starvation tactics, his blatant violations, they went quiet. No fiery speeches, no ultimatums, no public demands for basic human decency. Why? The answer lies in Lula's troubling coziness with dictators like Maduro, a pattern that's impossible to ignore. Let's lay it out. Lula's been a fixture in Latin American politics for decades, a former union leader who rose to Brazil's presidency with promises of fairness and progress. But somewhere along the way, his moral compass started spinning. In May 2023, Lula welcomed Maduro to Brasilia with open arms, treating him like a long-lost brother. They hugged, they smiled, they talked about a new era in Brazil-Venezuela relations. Lula even took a swipe at US sanctions on Venezuela, calling them unfair, a jab that played right into Maduro's hands. This wasn't diplomacy, it was a photo op for authoritarianism. Fast forward to May 2025, and Lula's at it again. He jets off to Moscow for Russia's Victory Day parade, rubbing elbows with none other than Vladimir Putin and, you guessed it, Nicolas Maduro. This isn't a coincidence, it's a deliberate choice. Lula's drawn to strongmen, leaders who cling to power no matter the cost. He's shared stages with the likes of Cuba's Raúl Castro and Nicaragua's Daniel Ortega, never once calling out their abuses. It's a pattern that reeks of hypocrisy for a man who claims to champion democracy. Back to the residents in Caracas, Brazil had the leverage to make a difference. As a regional giant, they could have leaned on Maduro, threatening diplomatic or economic consequences. They could have gone public, shaming Venezuela on the world stage for starving 5 people under their protection. Instead, Lula's government tiptoed around the issue, issuing vague statements about inviolability, while those asylees languished. The Vienna Convention? Brazil cited it, but never enforced it. The result? Maduro got a free pass to keep tightening the screws. This isn't just a diplomatic misstep. It's a betrayal of everything Brazil claims to stand for. Lula's alignment with Maduro didn't just let down those 5 Venezuelans. It let down every Latin American who looks to Brazil as a beacon of democracy. While the US and Argentina took a stand, Lula played it safe, prioritizing his dictator fan club over human lives. It's a stain on his legacy, and it's time we called it what it is: cowardice. Now brace yourselves, because here's where the story explodes into something straight out of a Hollywood blockbuster. On May 6, 2025, the impossible happened. Those 5 opposition leaders, Magali, Pedro, Claudia, Humberto, and Omar, vanished from the residence in Caracas and reappeared, safe and sound, on American soil. After 412 days of hell, they were free. How did it happen? That's the million-dollar question, and while the details are shrouded in secrecy, what we do know is nothing short of extraordinary. The United States, under a newly re-elected Donald Trump, pulled off what's been called a precise operation. Was it a military strike, with elite forces slipping past Maduro's guards? A covert extraction, with agents posing as civilians to whisk them away? Some have even compared it to the CIA's Argo operation, where disguises and deception outsmarted a hostile regime. Whatever the method, it worked like a charm. Hours after leaving Caracas, the 5 were breathing free air in the US, far from Maduro's reach. Marco Rubio, Trump's Secretary of State, didn't mince words. This was a victory for freedom, he declared on X. Maria Corina Machado, the opposition's fearless leader, called it impeccable and epic, a testament to American resolve. The operation wasn't just a rescue, it was a masterclass in audacity, a direct challenge to a dictator who thought he was untouchable.
Let's talk about what this means, because it's bigger than 5 people. For Maduro, it's a slap in the face. proof that his iron grip has cracks. He spent years building a fortress of fear, but the U.S. waltzed right through it, exposing his weakness. For the Venezuelan opposition, it's a lifeline. A shot of adrenaline for a movement battered by arrests and exile. And for Trump, it's a statement.
Back in the White House, he's sending a clear message. America won't sit idly by while dictators crush their people. Unlike Brazil's wishy-washy diplomacy, Trump's team took action, showing the world what backing your allies really looks like. The contrast couldn't be starker. While Lula cozied up to Maduro, Trump drew a line in the sand. This rescue wasn't just about saving lives. It was about signaling to every tyrant from Caracas to Moscow, the U.S. is watching, and we're not afraid to act. It's a bold move, one that could shift the dynamics of Venezuela's fight for freedom. So here we stand, at the crossroads of a story that's equal parts tragedy and triumph. The rescue of those 5 Venezuelans from the Argentine ambassador's residence is a chapter that'll go down in history. A moment when courage met action, when the U.S. stepped up where others faltered. But let's not sugarcoat it. This story lays bare some ugly truths. Maduro's regime is a cancer, eating away at Venezuela's soul. His tactics, starvation, surveillance, outright murder, are the work of a man who'd rather rule a graveyard than a free nation. But Brazil's role? That's the real gut punch. Lula had a chance to be a hero, to use Brazil's clout to save those 5 and push back against tyranny. Instead, he chose silence, seduced by his bromance with Maduro and his dictator pals. It's a betrayal that stings, a reminder that even democracies can lose their way when leaders prioritize politics over principles. For the Venezuelan people, this rescue is a beacon, a sign that the world hasn't forgotten them. For the U.S., it's a flex, a return to the kind of bold leadership that gets results. And for Maduro, it's a warning. Your days are numbered. The fight for Venezuela's future is far from over. But this moment, this daring, defiant rescue, proves one thing: freedom's worth fighting for, and America's ready to lead the charge.